we get started on this video, guys, obviously you saw the time. It's a relatively lengthy one. We're going to be asking the question whether the country wants somebody who's somewhat of a fascist, or do they want just somebody who's just simply a strong leader. In this video, I'm going to be talking about some examples of what government overreach looks like. That will be at the very, very beginning, where the second portion of the video, or the middle of the video, is going to be discussing a lot of the things that are going on in today's society and why it is people just may feel a certain way. And this is also going to include not only crime, immigration, but it's also going to include U.S. foreign policy as well. So make sure you guys stick around for the full video. And I'm also going to be talking about previous leaders from our past also. So make sure you guys hang around for the full video, and let's go ahead and dive into this.
A number of Americans want a strong, rough, anti-democratic leader. What are they talking about? So this is a story from The Conversation, researched by Ali Haney, College Center for Political Participation, revealed that approximately one-third of 1,500 respondents expressed a willingness to support leaders who would take uncompromising, decisive action, even if it meant violating democratic norms. For example, respondents were asked if they believe that the only way our country can solve its current problems is by supporting tough leaders who will crack down on these who undermine American values. About a third of the respondents agreed or strongly.
So do Americans want a fascist leader, or do Americans just want a strong leader? Well, guys, the Patrick Bet David podcast had a nice little segment, which I'll be leaving in the description box of this video here for you guys to actually watch and view, that discusses this, and of course polls and polling data that shows that a certain amount of Republicans want a leader who is not afraid to, let's just say, smash certain types of norms to get things done, to preserve American traditions. And also at the exact same time, there's actually a pretty sizable portion that are on the Democratic side who want the exact same thing. However, I personally think that this right here is a little bit confusing, and I think it deserves a bit of an actual deep dive and an actual look into this. But with that right there being said, let me go ahead and play the first part of this, and then we'll come back on the other side and discuss this a little bit further, as we always do in all these videos, especially during my daily reactionary type content. Okay, guys, so you obviously heard the first part there. Now, let's go ahead and set the scene, and let's go ahead and talk about exactly what our nation is at this moment in time. When the previous guy was in office, the Democratic Party constantly undermined the regime itself. I even remember back in 2020 when the whole conversation of potential I have to be very, very careful with these words due to, well, yeah, I think YouTube's actually eased up on COVID. So the vaccines, for example. Now, I'm not going to get into the politics of that, because that is your choice to take it, your choice not to take it. I remember a lot of people were saying, no, I would never take it. And some people were saying that they would. And a lot of people who said that they would never take it, the minute the thing hit the shelves, quote unquote shelves, they went and jumped to actually take it, which kind of undermines themselves in a lot of ways, but I'm not going to get into that for the purposes of this video. I'm just giving you guys an example. And of course, you had Vice President Kamala Harris basically telling people not to take it, yet of course it was undermining national policy. Now, whether you agree with the national policy or whether you agree with the mandate or not, that right there is completely on you. However, at the same time, though, when an order is given and somebody in politics or somebody in leadership tells you not to take it before any information comes out or before it does, some people may look at that as undermining national policy. That right there is just an example. Now, like I said before, what I just said just now was completely neutral. It's up to you guys to decide. Now, me personally, I was never going to take it, still never have, regardless of whether the government wanted you to take it or not. I'm just saying that this could be a situation where it could be suggested that maybe she was right for saying it. But still, if you guys remember correctly, when they got into office immediately in 2021, they tried to actually mandate said jab. That right there is completely un-American right off the bat. Let me give you another example of, let's just say, undermining of the American people or undermining of American traditions. In the United States of America, you have the right to refuse, okay? You have the right to basically say no. And while I may, in fact, be very, very much a pro-lifer, I understand that abortion is obviously still on the books. Now, that's a different topic for another day, but of course, this is something they love to say. My body, my choice. And of course, you then get, say, the situation when it came to Obamacare, where the former president Barack Hussein Obama, who, by the way, we'll talk about in this video as well, he basically said that you have no choice but to take the government health care. You have to basically pay into it. You have to basically sign up for Obamacare if you want some form of health care insurance, and you got to pay all the ridiculous taxes. Basically, what you were doing was you were not only paying for your health care insurance, but you were paying for the person next to you. So the logical step in this situation would be what? Make it optional. I mean, I think that right there is probably the most fair thing you could do. It's probably the most American thing. You come up with something, you can buy in if you want to. And of course, if you don't want to buy in, you don't have to. These right here are examples, of course, of somebody saying that the federal government could, in fact, be ultra authoritarian. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, why in the world are we talking about authoritarian versus non-authoritarian measures in this video here? Well, because a lot of people automatically misconstrue what the hell is being said as the American people are saying, you know what, we want a dictator, we want somebody to tell us what the hell we're supposed to do. When in reality, we should be smart enough to actually decide on our own, which is actually the right thing to do, because in the United States, we're supposed to have freedom. And of course, some people will tell you it's really just the illusion of freedom, and I kind of agree with that. But still, we are here on this platform every day fighting to get back the freedoms that, quite frankly, we are supposed to have. I'm just giving you guys a couple of examples of what I mean by the whole situation involving authoritarian and non-authoritarian. Don't get me started on how it was that Obama, of course, when he was in office, he decided to target Tea Party groups. Don't get me started on targeting of journalists. And of course, some people think that Trump was authoritarian because Trump just simply called out quote unquote fake news, because a lot of times the news was in fact fake. Or you get into the arguments of what is this? Twitter can do whatever because it's a private company. It can censor your speech, or same thing with YouTube. Okay, but anytime you actually ask somebody about that, their tune completely changes the minute that their freedom of speech has been completely and totally curtailed.
90% of Republicans would support tough leaders who crack down on groups perceived as undermining American values, while over half of Democrats held similar views. Almost half of strongest Republican Party supporters and over a third of strong Democratic Party supporters endorsed the idea that it is acceptable to bend the rules for political goals. Interesting. To bend the rules for political, and this is the chart, by the way, if you're looking at it. So if you look at the strongly agree, strongly disagree statement, the only way our country can solve the current problems is by supporting tough leaders who will crack down on those who undermine the American values. Strong Democrats, you see what they're saying, green, strongly agree. Okay, interesting. Not strong Democrats, a little bit. Lean Democrat, okay, not that much. Independents, 19%. Lean Republican, 27. Not strong Republicans, 26. Strong Republicans are like, no, bro, hold these mofos accountable. I want them going to jail is what I want them to be, right? So what do you think about this, Tom, when you're hearing a story about the fact that American people, maybe, is this caused by a Joe Biden presidency of 2 years where they're like, dude?
But for the moment, I'll digress. Basically, what's going on in this country right now is that you have extreme levels of crime, okay? A lot of people are downplaying the crime. I'm not going to get fully into the statistics, but what I will do is I will point you to someone like, say, Sean Fitzgerald, who discusses crime all the time, especially in big cities. By the way, a lot of these crime metrics, when you hear people say that the crime rate is down, they're basing a lot of this, let's just say that they're basing this on much, much longer periods of data that go all the way back to 2001. And for whatever reason, they forget to mention the previous few years, or they forget to mention 2020. They forget to mention all the riots that we saw, which, by the way, riots and civil strife is obviously something that is probably going to occur in this country, especially in the near future, especially given the fact that, hey, it's a presidential year, and once again, race wars only occur once every 4 years. It's just the way things are. The country is divided. We have a situation where we have certain people of a certain lifestyle trying to intrude in classrooms. Of course, we've talked about this on this platform before. Of course, I'm talking about the agenda that was placed upon our kids, which of course eventually led to something like, say, the Parental Rights Act in Florida, which I personally don't think went far enough, but at least was a good step in the right. It was a step in the right direction to keep certain people of a certain lifestyle from getting to our children. What we have a lot of right now is we have a lot of radical far leftists who have no children, who have no prospects in life. Basically, people who don't want to be held accountable, or people who are afraid of any form of accountability making U.S. policy at this moment in time and influencing it And of course, a lot of people are beginning to get fed up with this. So people automatically think to themselves, maybe a strong leader will take care of this. However, strong leadership is not always going to be the actual answer. You see, back in 2012, and I learned this, and this actually turned out to be very, very true. There was a guy running for president on the Republican ticket. His name was Rick Santorum. And when they talked about leadership, he always had a response to this. And his response, of course, was something along the lines of you have to fix the problems from the bottom up, meaning that you actually have to fix the problems from the state and local level. State and local politics is really and truly what governs your everyday lives, not federal politics. We can get mad at Biden, we can get mad at whoever the president is, or whoever the hell is in control of Congress all you want. But if state and local politics is actually fixed or actually good to go, chances are you're probably not going to feel the effects of the federal government in the ways that you might would think. That's the beauty of our system. States, of course, have their own rights. States can pretty much, for the most part, well, it can't supersede federal, but I'm pretty sure you guys understand that depending on what state you are in, the law may be adjusted in a way that you may have voted for in the past to your actual liking. Also, something else too, state and local representatives are also much, much easier to hold accountable. So therefore, leadership is definitely something that needs to be called into question. Of course, people obviously want strong leaders, which we'll talk about here in a little bit more in a second. But the fact of the matter is, if you want to fix a lot of these problems that we're seeing in education, that we're seeing in the U.S. today, you need to start at the state and local level from the very, very bottom and work your way up to the top. And when you finally get to the top, then you can, of course, fix everything top bottom, but it needs to be from the bottom up first. Let's watch a little more of this.
Middle East attacked us 78 times in a few weeks in the month of December. You don't do shit. And now we have to sit here and bend our back and apologize. Maybe we should do something about it. Tom, your thoughts?
Yeah, this has been below the surface for a while, and now it's showing up. What it says is that people all around the world, especially Americans right now, crave a strong leader speaking with clarity who will do something. Strong leader speaking with clarity will do something. You can look back in history and see let's forget about Mao and let's forget about Stalin, forget about Hitler. Let's look at Mussolini as a case study, Pat. Mussolini told people he would make the trains run on time and he would help rectify what was going on in the Italian economy, and he got democratically elected. Now, he turned out to be a bad guy, but the point is when you see elections like that, when people have had enough, they are craving that strong leader speaking with clarity and authority who's going to get something done. And this doesn't surprise. And right now, damn straight, the Joe Biden presidency has been sort of a last straw of wishy-washy Washington. Now Americans are starting to speak like this. You went over the strongly agree. Look at the agree. If you add the 22 strongly agree and the 37 agree,
90%.
That's 59% of Democrats said, you know what, I'm in. That's the line that I look at. The strong Democrats, 59% who said strongly agree and agree. You know what?
You get what he's doing.
I'm in. Exactly.
Now, obviously, the PBD podcast, which I do listen to from time to time, and I think that Patrick does a very good job. He's now at this moment in time talking about foreign policy to a certain degree. Now, let me go ahead and say this really quick. There's this such thing called behavioral correction that I think needs to be discussed. You oftentimes hear a lot of people on the platform who claim to be on the right, and some, of course, who claim to be on the left, who claim to be that they're totally anti-war and they don't want to put U.S. troops on the ground, all that type of stuff there. I'm the type of guy who basically, for the most part, nowadays feels the exact same way. However, in my case, I've been to a country that was a war zone 2 separate times. And while I do not regret my service and I'm very, very proud of my service, and even though you guys may disagree with my views on Iraq, which I've never really truly given you guys my views on that altogether, I'm still very, very proud of my service. And I understand why people still don't want to put boots on the ground in a place or an area that, quite frankly, we probably should not be at. But still at the same time, and I think we're probably talking about Israel-Gaza here, but what a lot of people don't seem to understand about the Israel-Gaza situation was as that entire situation was unfolding, the U.S. installation in Turkey was being attacked and the U.S. installation in Iran was being attacked. These people attacked our installations with almost pure impunity. We never even responded until like 3 or 4 days later. It was a drone strike. Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I don't like the idea of U.S. personnel or U.S. troops getting attacked or killed or anything like that. And some of these people, by the way, they really bother me with some of their anti-war. I understand. You're anti-war. I get it. But there are some people out there who, if the country was attacked, because they're so anti-war, they would be willing to let hundreds of American lives to be killed with no answer. One of the biggest problems I had during the Israeli-Gaza situation was that it was right around 30, it was 29 to be exact, American citizens had either been killed or captured by Hamas. We had to rely on Israel to take those people back. Now, me personally, I didn't want to put any boots on the ground. But of course, as I've said before, and I've been very, very consistent on this, what you could do is you could send a task force or you could send a fleet to the Mediterranean and, of course, one of the Indian Ocean to kind of keep things on track, keep things between Israel and Hamas itself, so that way nobody else gets involved. The Israeli Special Forces would have eventually got our people out, and of course that we could have then, from that point in time, demanded some form of compensation, even though there wasn't going to be anything coming from Hamas anyways. But let's just say it's another situation where, say, we have 25 of our people, 25 of our soldiers get killed by, say, Lebanon, or possibly, let's just say, because we got troops in Turkey, a base, some of our men get killed. I'm not saying that you have to completely declare war with the people who killed the people that serve this nation, but you do need to at least bomb the hell out of these people, and you need to at least send a message, lay the hell off of our damn troops. This right here denotes some form of strength. When Barack Obama was president, we never actually got this. I remember one time we had an incident where North Korea was threatening us with nuclear strikes, and for whatever reason, he chose to have a flyby. He decided to send U.S. planes to fly by Pyongyang. Okay, on the surface, that sounds okay to kind of rattle, Mr. Rocket Man. But then we turned right back around and told him that it was us. Not very bright. I'll give you another example. Of course, I'm using Obama because it's mostly, it's a little bit more recent. I remember that we had a drone go over, land, and it got pulled down in Iran. And Obama went on television and basically said, we want it back. He basically demanded it back, but they never gave us back our drone. The consensus would be to actually hit the self-destruct button on that drone and destroy it, but we never really and truly did that. As a result of that, his weakness, they ended up with some of our technology. That's not exactly what a strong leader would do. I mean, even Bill Clinton fired a cruise missile into a telephone booth in Iraq. Granted, it only hit a camel in the ass and killed it, but still at the same time, that was better than nothing. And in many ways, it feels like America is just being ripped off anywhere and everywhere. Of course, we got the issues with China. We have to be reminded exactly how stupid we are as a nation to allow a nation to get away with ripping us off every chance they get. We also have to deal with the fact that at this moment in time, we're dealing with a border crisis that is absolutely insane. And we all know that Mexico is enjoying the fact of sending these people to this nation, even though Biden, of course, is allowing it to occur. And even though you hear liberal mayors talk about, well, it's Greg Abbott who's doing this, when in reality, when you really and truly sit down and you think about it, it sounds more to me like the Biden administration, from what we're seeing, is actually approving every single move. This right here is called weakness, and it's also weakness with somebody who's willingly trying to destroy the nation. So yes, of course, there are people out there at this moment in time who are looking at this situation and saying, you know what, I just want somebody who can obviously get the railroads going, somebody who can take care of the shortages, which, by the way, we had very, very early in this current administration. I want somebody who's at least competent, but not only do I want somebody who's competent, I also want someone who's absolutely tough and absolutely hardcore and actually willing to put their foot down and put an end to the nonsense that we're dealing with. And I think at this moment in time, we're getting to a point here in the U.S. where people, including even some Democrats, have had enough of the current regime. And the fear is that these people might invite a fascist into office, but we're not there yet. But don't worry, we'll be doing a piece on that. Let's watch one more bit, and then we're going to go ahead and give my final thoughts and go ahead and close this thing.
That's where I'm going with this. We all know that, especially if you're on the Republican side of the aisle, you look at Strong as an authoritative type of leader. You know, somebody will say authoritarian, some people will say strong, but he's definitely authoritative, meaning like he ain't messing around. So we already understand that, what is it? Almost 90% of Republicans want a strong leader. We get that. But the Democrats, when you look at someone like an Obama, nobody called him strong. You might have said
not strong.
You might have said that he was charming or well-spoken or empathetic, but he wasn't a strong leader. And the Democrats are even looking at Joe Biden, frail, old, senile, some may say. Vinny's already diagnosed him with dementia based on his medical
100%.
reputation. But what we can all agree upon is that he's sort of feckless and ineffective. and definitely not strong. So when you see Democrats out there being like, give me a badass mofo out there, that is a telltale sign that America's yearning something a little bit more.
You mean like what we had with Trump when shaking everybody's hand and ripping their arms off, slapping Putin, hitting Kim Jong-un on the shoulder? You mean that strong? The guy that didn't care, the guy that was just talking shit, that was actually an alpha?
So how about-
Weird. What, didn't we have that? Now you guys want it back?
Exactly. Obama, what was his one word?
Change.
Hope.
Change.
Hope.
Yes, we
no,
can.
No. The first
can't.
postage stamp thing. Obama, hope. And what is the first word out of Trump's mouth? Make.
Make. Wow, good point. Make America great again.
What was Joe Biden's slogan?
Sleep.
Who are we?
Like,
Is it nap time again?
No, I'm serious.
Yeah.
Hope versus make America great again. Hope, make.
But listen, and Adam, just
Strong
going back to that
leader
point, in time,
with clarity.
we had strong, and listen, besides the feelings, everything was kind of good until COVID, and now look. Now look. Would you guys say, I want to know from all three of you, is Joe Biden going to go down as one of the worst presidents that we've had in this past 4 years? Be honest with yourself.
What do you? Is that like a trick question?
No. I'm being genuine. From everything that's happened from
That last part, I think, is very important. Make, and then you had hope and change. Sleepy Joe. Here's the thing, guys. The thing about leadership is that you need to be able to make sure that things are in order and things actually run properly. Now, I can already hear a lot of people who voted for Obama, they'll come in and say that the Bush administration was an absolute wreck. And my response to that would be, really only the second half of Bush's administration was a wreck. The first half was kind of a haze of crap. But of course, I think the second half was really the actual true wreck. Fact of the matter is that leaders make things happen. That's the reason why it is we want leaders. In the case of Obama, there was no hope, and the change, of course, was for the worst. Or maybe the hope was for freeloaders. Fact of the matter is people want people who actually lead. They want people who actually put their foot down and actually enforce the laws and the books. That's actually what they want. However, I do not believe that that means that they want someone who's an actual fascist. Now, in the entire 8-minute clip, I did not pick up on that. What I did pick up on was that they did want somebody, or the people in the poll wanted somebody who would actually enforce the law and actually crack down on people and actually send the people who needed to go to jail to actually go to jail. At this moment in time, we've got so much crime going on, so many illegalities going on here that it's already beyond the point of somebody needed to go to jail. In some of these places, you could get away with assault, but yet if somebody stops somebody, like in the case of Daniel Penny, on a train from possibly hurting others, that person goes to jail. That's how ass backwards we are as a nation at this moment in time, and I think that people on both sides of the aisle, quite frankly, are sick and tired of it. Now, you guys heard Adam there, especially in the very beginning, talking about charming, feckless, of course, talking about previous leaders that we had. Don't worry, I'll talk a little bit about that before we close things down. But in this video, I've already talked about the fact that there are situations where, of course, overseas, we need to have some form of behavioral correction. Now, I probably didn't expand as much as I wanted to, but basically what behavioral correction is bombing somebody, of course, to change their behavior. Like if they destroy some U.S. property or something, obviously you would bomb them. You wouldn't have to put boots on the ground or anything. You show off your military might, and people obviously see it. When it comes to crime, and of course this is a problem that we have to this day, basically what you need to do is allow the police to do their jobs. And while I am not the most pro-police person in the world, I understand their necessity. A lot of the things that are going on in America's largest cities, and of course we've got those poros DAs, of course, controlling everything, and I blame the people of these areas for voting these people into office. But then again, though, they obviously want this crime. If they did not want this crime, they never would have voted for these people. Of course, a lot of them are starting to see that they screwed up. The thing is this right here. If you simply enforce the law and you enforce the law consistently, people eventually at some point in time will, in fact, how do I say this? They will eventually fall in line. If you close the border and you actually deport the people who need to be deported, after a while, you'll eventually develop the reputation where somebody will say, this is obviously not an administration that we need to screw with. This country has had several administrations dating all the way back to World War II that were not exactly what we call consistent. I'm going to go ahead and briefly go through this right quick and go ahead and tell you guys exactly how I feel about the leadership. FDR, when he was president, we were winning World War II. But what a lot of people forget about the FDR administration was that he showed complete total weakness on the U.S. stage, especially when it came to dealing with the Soviet Union. As World War II was wrapping up, Joseph Stalin took over Eastern Europe, and of course, this policy continued under Harry Truman. Now, of course, the United States would eventually go to war in Korea. And of course, we would show off our military might there. But of course, Vietnam did not work out for us. During the Eisenhower days, we felt like we actually had a strong leader. Truman did not seem to be that strong. And really, and even though FDR got us the win in World War II, at the same time, you still gave Stalin pretty much almost all of Europe. And also, there were issues involved in Japan. But don't worry, we'll probably discuss those in future videos. I may discuss them on Gears 33 because they're all military related. But still, we'll probably discuss those in later videos. Something else, too, you had to consider that when Kennedy came into office, Eisenhower had been sort of the patriarchal strong leadership. Of course, we were also embroiled in wars, and the military-industrial complex got much, much stronger or began to actually get its footing when Eisenhower was in office. But as you guys have heard from me on several occasions, I'm not fully against the military-industrial complex if it is used properly. Fact of the matter is, Eisenhower was always viewed to be a strong leader. Kennedy was never viewed to be a strong leader, and some people have oftentimes viewed him as weak. I mean, this is the same guy who did allow nuclear missiles to be 90 miles off the U.S. coast. However, outside that right there, for the most part, he was a pretty well-respected leader within the nation. Maybe not on the foreign stage, but within the nation. Johnson was not exactly fully competent, but at least he was respected. Richard Nixon was called Tricky Dick for a reason, because Tricky Dick was tricky as hell and you did not know what the hell he was up to, whereas Gerald Ford was always viewed to be somewhat of a weak leader, clueless. But then we had our first really, really true weak leader in the 20th century, and that person was Jimmy Carter. I could make an entire book on Jimmy Carter and the weakness of Jimmy Carter and how incompetent he was. Thank God the American people saw what the hell was going on with rampant inflation at that time and a U.S. foreign policy that had completely fallen apart. We were being humiliated on the world stage. So what happened? They selected Ronald Reagan. Reagan's got his own problems too. I'm not some pure, flat-out Reaganite or some pure, flat-out Reagan worshiper. I can acknowledge his faults. But over the course of 8 years with Reagan, the country's domestic policy appeared to get a little bit better. And of course, the Soviet Union eventually collapsed, or it officially collapsed under Herbert Walker Bush, who was more of the statesman. But Herbert Walker Bush, once again, when he saw a crisis, he took the nation to war, went to Gulf War, and of course, we ended up destroying the Iraqi army. Clinton comes into office, and you could argue that he was weak in some areas and solid in others, but the crime situation was nowhere near as bad. The U.S. foreign policy situation was nowhere near as bad. When Bush was in office, you could say what the hell you want to, but at least Bush would at least punch you in the face. At least he'd fight you. When Obama came in office, America looked probably its absolute weakest. That was, of course, until today. Now, there's a lot of people out there who look at the Trump administration, and I'll be willing to admit that there are some problems. I do wish he'd have handled the situation in 2020 a lot better, but for the most part, when you screwed with the United States on some level, he responded. Even if it wasn't that day or at that time, he still responded. I think what the American people really and truly want at this moment in time is they want somebody who's just not going to allow the United States to get completely and totally screwed with. I don't think that the country wants a fascist, even though they would like somebody to crack down and actually enforce the law. But I don't think the nation wants a fascist or a Hitler or anything like that. I think that maybe there's some fantasies of, yeah, I would really love to close this border and send these people back. But of course, some people will call you an authoritarian for that. I really wish somebody would enforce the law and maybe, I don't know, throw some of these people, give them the chair. Talking about the crime, what's going on in the big cities. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who feel that way, but of course, I don't think that the nation itself wants a full-blown authoritarian. I think they just want somebody who's simply a relatively strong leader, meaning they don't exactly want the country to get screwed with as bad as it is. Also, strong leaders also, let's just say that the stability factor in the American people's minds automatically goes up tenfold because people automatically feel safe and they automatically feel somewhat free. The current administration is not giving these people this feeling. As a matter of fact, it's increasing the worry and the overall apathy in the nation itself. And as a result of this, we've also got massive amounts of social alienation. The question, however, though, is that last part, is that how long will it last for? Well, guys, that is why this channel exists, to talk about societal issues, and we'll be covering it every step of the way. Fact of the matter is, the American people, they want a good old-fashioned strong leader. They're not looking for somebody who's a fascist or somebody who's going to break their constitutional rights. And while that survey may speak a certain way, it seems to me like basically what the survey is pretty much telling you is that the American people need somebody who's actually strong, whether it be for 4 years, 8 years, or whatever. And with that right there being said, guys, I'm going to go ahead and end this video now. Make sure you guys hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, sound off in the comment section. It's a relatively lengthy one, and I'll see you guys later.